Hello and welcome to my home. My name is Mark DeMio and this is the bassoon. This piece that you just heard is a French piece by a composer named Gounod, and the name of it is March of a Marionette. A marionette is a type of puppet made of wood controlled by strings, and the composer wanted to make this sound like a bouncy little march, and he used the bassoon in this instance to play short notes that hop along. The bassoon is made of wood. It's part of the woodwind family, kind of like the flutes, which play higher in pitch, oboes, clarinets. The bassoon is the base of the woodwind family. It's made of maple. This wood comes from a tree, and you can see also that there are many metal keys. So the bassoon is made of wood and maple. Maple is a valuable tree. We get maple syrup from it. And in my yard, I was able to find a maple branch that fell. You can see how sturdy it is. The bassoon has to be made from a hardwood, and maple is a hardwood. Let me hold up the instrument next to the branch. Of course, the branch is in one piece, and the bassoon is in many pieces. And I'll show you those different parts a little later. Right now, let's listen to another piece, a melody written by Ludwig Beethoven. And in this piece, rather than a bouncy melody, march-like, Beethoven wrote a slow, long phrased tune with notes that connect, and they're supposed to be smoothly played. Adagio melody by Beethoven, he didn't want the short notes. He wanted the bassoon to sing a long melody. Rather than so that gives you an idea of what the bassoon sounds like. But we have to also take a look at the different parts of the bassoon. Here I have the mouthpiece that I play on. It's rather small, and it has an upper and lower blade, and it makes a funny sound. It doesn't sound very musical, but that sound, which we call a crow, gives us an idea of what the bassoon will sound like when the instrument is put together. The next part is this crooked metal pipe. It's called a bocal, and when I put the reed onto the bocal, the sound changes. You can tell that it sounds different, but it still doesn't sound like a musical instrument. The first piece of maple that we put onto the bassoon is this one, and it's called the wing joint. It's about 2 feet long, and it's made out of the same sort of wood that I showed you originally, this branch. Let's see what it sounds like now. Well, we can hear a melody, but it still doesn't sound like a legitimate instrument. Let's find out what goes on next. Here it is. Here's the next piece. It's wider than the wing joint. It still has those metal keys and has plenty of wood. It has 2 holes. The smaller hole is the hole that we'll put the other joint in. So the wing joint is going into what we call the boot. As we put more of the instrument together, the notes should be able to drop lower in pitch. It's getting to look more and more like the complete bassoon. But still, we need more parts. Oh, here it is. It's the long joint. Now, while I put the instrument together further and further, I'll need to sit down because the instrument, being over 9 feet long, is hard to balance unless I sit here on the chair and I use a seat strap. I hook the bassoon onto the ring, and here we have more of the instrument. It's getting lower and lower. Now I'll put the final piece on. It's called the bell. Now that I've put this on, we have more than 9 feet of tubing. Let's hear how the instrument sounds coming from above and descending lower and lower. Even lower. I stuck a glove on the end of the instrument so you could see how the sound finally comes out the end of the bassoon. So I've put this bassoon together. It's not my favorite, so I'll go back to my other bassoon. I'll just put this down here. Composers loved the bassoon from the earliest of its existence. One composer was called Haydn. His name, Joseph Haydn, is famous with musicians, and this is a famous melody he wrote, Simplified. That's another melody for the bassoon. When I talked to you about putting the bassoon together, I showed you the reed, the double reed, the mouthpiece. I make these, and it comes from a plant. Just like the bassoon comes from a plant, the maple tree, the reed, the mouthpiece, comes from a plant, and it's called cane. And here's a piece of it. I'll bring it a little closer. You can see all the long leaves, and the main part of the shaft is a tube. Goes all the way up and down. At the very end, there's some seeds that grow out of it. Now, this plant was harvested a few months ago in October. You might still be able to see some green in the leaves. It's very dry. In a few years, it'll look like this. Here's another one. This one's older. This piece is probably about 4 years old. All the leaves have fallen off, and we have a closer product to what we need for making the reed. Here's another way of showing you. These tubes came from this sort of plant. It was a brother plant from the same batch. So I broke it down so you could see a little bit more clearly what we make reeds out of. It's hollow in the inside, and we use the outer bark. Here I have a few pieces that are further along in the development of making a reed. You can see that this used to be part of the outer bark. And with our bassoon reeds, when we put them together, there will be an upper blade and lower blade. And these vibrate. So when I put it in my mouth and I produce the sound with wind, the blades vibrate. But of course, these are just the parts of the cane before we make the reed. Later in the process, we have a reed that's shaped. This is the blade, it flares out, and this is the tube. I'm holding it on a reed tool called a mandrel. This is a reed wired up. And this is the reed after it's been wrapped. So this is very, very close to being a finished reed. You can see it's still hollow on the inside. That's what it looks like. I'll compare this to the finished reed. This is a contrabassoon reed. It's bigger than the bassoon. The contrabassoon is another bassoon, and it goes a whole octave lower. It's very, very low. I'll play the musical tune by the composer Joseph Haydn again. And after I play it on the bassoon, I'll switch to the contrabassoon so you can hear the octave difference. That's the bassoon. And here, I'll move in the contrabassoon into view. It's pretty big, twice as big. Whereas the bassoon is about 9 feet long, the contrabassoon is more than 20 feet long. It has a reed, which I'll crow for you, and a metal pipe that's bent called the bocal, and all the tubing, just like the bassoon, only much more of it. It gets wrapped around several times, and the bell, instead of being on top, remember how the hand, the glove was waving on top? The contrabassoon's bell points down. I'll put the bocal in, and I'll walk over to my chair and play the same melody. Here's the reed. I'll crow on it. Doesn't sound very musical, but when I put it on the bocal, on the end of the contrabassoon, we'll get a different sound. Same melody, but much lower. So this contrabassoon, being made of maple, must have taken a lot of wood. The wood that is usually picked is from the best trees. They harvest them from groves of maple trees, making these special instruments. Oboes are made out of wood and clarinets as well. Originally, so were flutes. The bassoon is the only woodwind made of maple. I'll put put this over here, back in its stand. In view. Then I'll pick up the bassoon again. I have to strap it in. The bassoon is so long, being over 9 feet long, it's a little cumbersome to hold. So that's why we have a strap at the bottom to hold on to the weight of the instrument, therefore balancing it. Thank you for allowing me to show you my instrument, the bassoon. My name is DeMio. This is my home, and I've been happy to be with you for these minutes.